everyone doing? Joel Bowman. Alright, I label my informative speech Cash Crops in America. Right, I took a controversial topic and looked beyond it so I could be informative about it. I want to discuss marijuana and look beyond the fact that whether it should be illegal or non-legal and how we could use it beneficially to help us in a time of need. And by time of need, I mean like our recession we're in. And we're trying to take out loans for money, which is ultimately is going to affect you. So it's relevant, and marijuana laws are changing across the world, and it affects everybody who's a taxpayer. All right. And how I made this choice was just through normal interactions in everyday life. It's there, regardless of whether it should be or not. It's there, and it's being used. And the problem with it is there's underground sales that are not being taxed, which is a big deal. So by watching like laws, I found an interest in this just because it's controversial, it's kind of interesting. And watching states begin to change their laws to compensate for the use of marijuana is interesting, and then the possibility of marijuana benefiting America in a time of need. So in order to educate you, the listener, on the benefits of using marijuana to generate revenue for our society, I would first brief you on marijuana laws and where it stands in our society today. Okay. Marijuana laws have been reformed every year, and here is where we are now. Marijuana in 1937, we had the Marijuana Tax Act, and that made it illegal to possess and sell marijuana. And this was in a time of our first Great Depression. So with high unemployment rates, that is what made they frowned upon marijuana in the first place. That's what started the whole thing. In 1956, they started getting more mandatory sentences with the Narcotics Control Act. And that made basically, if you got in trouble, it was stricter. You got in trouble for it. So just slap on the wrist, you're gone. All right. In the 70s, it started to change. We got NORML, and that's the National Organization for Reform Marijuana Laws. It's a group of people that they're basically fighting against the government, and they're putting their statement out there. So, and then in 1984, we got the Comprehensive Crime Control Act. So even though NORM came and was fighting against the laws, they passed a new law which says possession of 100 grams of heroin is equivalent to possession of 100 grams of marijuana, which is very intense. That's a serious crime. All right, so that's a little brief, but where marijuana stands now, in 1996, it became legalized in California for medical purposes. So, and now it is legal in 14 states, including Alaska, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Maine, Michigan, Montana, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. So you can see how it's slowly coming back to our society. All right. We must now look at marijuana as a whole, as a natural resource, and what natural resources mean to our country. Marijuana grows freely and natural. It's much like a weed, only needing water, sunshine, soil to thrive, which America has to offer. All right. In countries or in states where marijuana is legal, you have to have proper identification, which was like a medical ID card, which allows you to possess marijuana, certain amounts, and grow a certain amount of marijuana for yourself. In some instances, some growers provide head shops with marijuana, which then sells it to those with a proper ID, and it's taxed. So they're legally buying it, and then marijuana is being taxed. Natural resources are able to support our country financially. So if we take a look at it, coffee generates $5 billion in revenue annually for producing countries that produce coffee. Tobacco sales taxed in the United States alone in 2009 was $9.3 billion alone. All right. Now it's thought that if marijuana was made legally worldwide, that they would be able to tax it, and then in America we'd be able to make $6.2 million just from sales tax, which is helping aid us back. Instead of taking out money, we're kind of using this. This would mean using this to our benefit. And then on top of the $6.2 billion we generate from tax, there's also the fees that we save, which is $9.7 billion, which goes to probation and court fees and people who wind up in jail. That's taxpayers you guys are paying for people who get get convicted with this. Okay, so in transition, I'd like to go that even though marijuana is deemed illegal in most of our country, I still feel it's important to take a closer look at the possibilities that may lie within a drug. So, in conclusion, in a time of recession, I feel it's important to be familiar with possibilities created from natural resources, such as marijuana. And, I mean, I've talked about why marijuana just affects everyone, not just me, and how it will continue to affect our country, and possibilities that lie within. And as a taxpayer in this country, it would make me feel more comfortable knowing that everyone is paying equal taxes, and that we are doing everything possible to aid our country for the better.